The Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs within the Department of Labor shall immediately cease. They have to cease doing these things. They have to cease promoting diversity. They have to cease holding federal contractors and subcontractors responsible for taking affirmative action. And we are back, y'all. Thank you for watching today. Go ahead and hit that like button. You know it helps us out. And it helps you because it helps us. It helps us keep bringing you this content. Plus, the like button, touching the like button makes you a little bit more presidential, y'all. So go ahead and give it a try. Now, check this out, y'all. There are a couple of very important stories going on right now. There are many, many of them, but two that we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about affirmative action, and we're going to talk about DEI. All right, I know that's two subjects that are very controversial, y'all, but we have to get into it because this is what's happening right now. Now, first of all, let's talk about DEI. As you may know, DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And DEI it's been lauded and hailed in some circles, and it's been decried in other circles. Now, why do people like DEI? People like DEI because they believe that people who have not had an opportunity may get an opportunity due to certain programs that look for people who might be in what we may call an underserved category and give them an opportunity. So that's why people like DEI. People dislike DEI because they say, well, DEI doesn't look for the best candidate for the job. It doesn't look for the best person. It will choose somebody who is inferior, not based on merit, but based on other qualifications that should not come into play. So those are the two sides of DEI. Well, Donald Trump, the new president, the old president who's now the new president, again, back to the future, right? Donald Trump has said in his administration, he does not want any DEI, and he has signed executive orders essentially ending DEI in the federal government. Let's take a quick look at this news report, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it. And we'll also talk about affirmative action because that also, it might be on its last leg as well.
President Trump's administration is moving to end affirmative action in federal contracting and is directing that all federal diversity, equity, and inclusion staff be put on paid leave and eventually be laid off. The move follows an executive order Trump signed on his first day, ordering a sweeping dismantling of the federal government's diversity and inclusion programs that could touch on everything from anti-bias training to funding for minority farmers and homeowners. That step is the first salvo in an aggressive campaign to upend DEI efforts nationwide, including leveraging the Justice Department and other agencies to investigate private companies pursuing training and hiring practices that conservative critics consider discriminatory against non-minority groups such as white men. Trump has called the programs, quote, discrimination and insisted on restoring strictly, quote, merit-based hiring. The order will immediately gut Joe Biden's wide-ranging effort to embed diversity and inclusion practices in the federal workforce, the nation's largest at about 2.4 million people.
So as you can see in the federal government, if you are in a DEI department or if you are relying on those types of programs to move up in your career or to get going, it looks like it's going to be tough going for you going into the future, y'all. So Donald Trump has made it clear about where his administration stands as it relates to DEI. The same can be said, or something similar can be said, for affirmative action. Now, affirmative action and DEI, they're cousins, if you will, in my opinion. You can certainly leave a comment and let me know if you think that's a mischaracterization or how you think they might be related. But I think of affirmative action and DEI as being cousins. Affirmative action wants to try to find people, again, who might come from what we might say is an underserved category of people, and says to them, look, what we're going to do is, a lot of times affirmative action has a quota system. So they say, look, out of 100 positions we're going to open up, we're going to make sure that we fill at least 30 of those positions with people from underserved categories. That would be an example of affirmative action, right?
Today, some federal employees are being told to stay home and prepare to be fired. A new Trump administration memo released overnight says people who work in government diversity, equity, and inclusion offices are being notified they are being placed on paid administrative leave effective immediately. Department heads now ordered to draw up plans by the end of the month to fire those workers as President Trump rolls back Biden-era attempts to diversify the federal workforce. He calls it discrimination.
Our country is going to be based on merit.
That would be, for the people who are in favor of it, again, same kind of argument as being in favor of DEI. For people who are opposed to it, similar kind of arguments as to being opposed to DEI. And as you can imagine, Donald Trump's administration has just taken a step away from affirmative action. Now, in order to understand this, you have to know that back in 1965, then President Lyndon Johnson, he signed Executive Order 11246. And that's called the Equal Employment Opportunity. Now, it's been referred to as the Equal Employment Opportunity Act. I don't know if we want to call it that because it wasn't an act of Congress. It wasn't a law that Congress passed and then the president signed. It was a presidential act. Okay, so it was a presidential executive action. And Donald Trump has now revoked this. And now this executive action was really about having affirmative action as it relates to federal contractors. So federal contractors had certain guidelines they had to follow as it relates to hiring and anti-discrimination and affirmative action in order to work with the federal government. Now, as it relates to Donald Trump's executive order, I call it executive action just now, but we can say it's executive order as well. Donald Trump's executive order says, for 90 days from the date of this order, federal contractors may continue to comply with the regulatory scheme in effect on January 20th, 2025. So it appears that federal contractors have about 90 days to get their ducks in a row as it relates to the Trump administration and Trump's executive order. Now, remember, Donald Trump, he promised that he would do this sort of thing, and now he's doing it. Some of the provisions under this executive order says, listen to this, y'all. The Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs within the Department of Labor shall immediately cease. They have to cease doing these things. They have to cease promoting diversity. They have to cease holding federal contractors and subcontractors responsible for taking affirmative action. And they have to cease allowing or encouraging federal contractors and subcontractors to engage in workforce balancing based on race, color, sex, sexual preference, religion, or national origin. So they have to stop promoting diversity. Okay, they have to stop holding federal contractors and subcontractors responsible for taking affirmative action. And they have to stop allowing or encouraging federal contractors and subcontractors to engage in workforce balancing based on those criteria, y'all. So y'all, now you know what this executive order says, this executive action, as I referred to it earlier. Let me know what y'all think. What do you think? Trump promised he would do this sort of thing, right? This is what we as the United States of America voted for, and now this is what we have. I would like to hear from y'all. Please, let's keep it respectful in the comments, y'all. These are the hottest of hot button issues. I know that there are going to be people who are upset about this, and I know there are people who are rejoicing. But we're all Americans, y'all, and we are all in this together, so let's be respectful. Let me know what y'all think, y'all. Please do share this video out to your family, to your friends, so they all know what's happening in this country and so they can understand it. And yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you back in the next one.